Here is a question that Pentagon military planners are desperately trying to answer right now. What happens when the largest conventional weapon in the American arsenal is simply not big enough for the job? This week, Donald Trump directly named Iran's most secretive nuclear facility, Pickaxe Mountain, hinting at a potential strike. But behind the aggressive political rhetoric, munitions experts and defense analysts are raising a quiet, terrifying warning. This specific target might actually sit beyond the reach of human engineering.
To understand why Pickaxe Mountain, known locally as Kuhe Kolan Gazla, is causing such a massive headache in Washington, we have to look at the satellite telemetry. Tucked deep within the rugged Zagros mountain range, just a mile south of the Natanz nuclear complex, this site has been under continuous, high-speed construction through the entire spring. Even as other surface military sites were absorbing heavily documented airstrikes, Tehran kept moving heavy excavation equipment here under total secrecy. Intelligence reports suggest Iran has been using this rapid expansion to rebuild its highly sensitive centrifuge assembly capacity. More importantly, independent experts believe part of Iran's remaining stockpile of 60% enriched uranium has been systematically relocated deep into this mountain. This makes Pickaxe Mountain not just an active construction zone, but arguably the single most strategically critical piece of nuclear infrastructure left standing in the country. Then came the political trigger. In a national radio interview, the American president openly floated the idea of delivering what he called a nice big shot right in the front door of the facility. Coming just hours after the US announced a renewed naval blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, this wasn't just a casual, offhand comment. It was a deliberate public threat that put the military's most specialized asset on notice.
When the United States decides a target is too deeply buried for normal munitions, it turns to exactly one weapon, the GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator, or MOP. This is a massive, 30,000-pound monster of a bomb, stretching over 20 feet long. It is a masterpiece of specialized destruction, built over 2 decades of lessons learned from the Iraq War, where older bunker busters simply failed to punch deep enough. But the GBU-57 doesn't work the way you think a bomb should. It is not designed to explode on impact. Instead, it relies on an incredibly dense, hardened steel casing and sheer kinetic weight falling from high altitude to physically drill itself into the earth. It is rated to punch through roughly 200 feet of earth or 60 feet of heavily reinforced concrete using nothing but gravity and material science before the actual warhead detonates.
The real engineering magic lies inside its smart fuse. As the MOP drills through solid matter, the fuse physically counts the structural layers it passes through. It can sense the exact millisecond it crosses from solid rock into an open, hollow void space, like a tunnel or a centrifuge hall. Only then does it trigger the explosion from deep underground, ensuring the blast energy is fully contained inside the bunker for maximum structural collapse. There is exactly one aircraft on the planet capable of carrying and delivering a weapon of this scale into contested airspace, the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber. Because of its immense weight and size, the MOP cannot fit on standard fighters. A non-stealth bomber trying to approach a highly defended, layered air defense network like the one protecting central Iran simply would not survive the mission profile.
For a long time, this combination of the B-2 and the GBU-57 seemed invincible. In June of last year, under a mission codenamed Operation Midnight Hammer, 7 B-2 bombers flew a grueling 30-hour round trip from Missouri to strike the Fordo and Natanz enrichment sites. By all accounts, the weapons worked exactly as advertised, penetrating facilities that the international community had long considered completely untouchable. The strategy was repeated earlier this spring. During a high-stakes search and rescue operation for a downed F-15 crew, U.S. Central Command ordered a targeted strike against an underground IRGC headquarters near Tehran. 2 B-2s dropped their ordnance, and, according to subsequent defense reporting, the underground complex was obliterated, with no lingering ambiguity about the outcome.
But Pickaxe Mountain is a fundamentally different engineering problem. Geological assessments and satellite data reviewed by independent groups, including the Open Nuclear Network, show that the tunnel network here sits between 260 and 330 feet underground. Crucially, it is buried not under soft rock or layered concrete, but under solid, continuous mountain granite. When you account for the full topography of the mountain above the tunnels, some structural analysts put the effective burial depth closer to 2,000 feet. Now, compare that to the GBU-57's maximum rated penetration of 200 feet. The math simply does not add up. Even under perfect conditions, a single American MOP cannot physically reach the bottom of Kuwe-Kolang Gazla.
So what does a military planner do when the mountain is deeper than the bomb? They turn to a highly dangerous tactic known as a layered strike. Instead of spreading weapons across different targets, multiple bombers drop their MOPs into the exact same impact crater in a precise, timed sequence. Think of it as a series of massive hammer blows hitting the exact same spot, with each successive bomb using the hole dug by the previous one to burrow deeper. This isn't just theory. It's exactly how the Pentagon cracked the Fordo shafts last year, walking 6 separate bombs down the same ventilation pathways. But doing this requires an almost impossible margin of precision. The second, third, and fourth bombs must fall within an incredibly tight radius, essentially flying down a narrow, smoking tunnel carved out seconds before by the first detonation.
Every extra pass required to line up these sequential drops creates a massive window of exposure for the B-2 crews. They are flying one of the most heavily defended, closely watched air combat missions in modern history. If the precision slips by even a few feet, the bomb hits fresh granite, the chain breaks, and the deepest parts of the facility remain completely untouched. This introduces a severe strategic risk. If a strike is ordered and only partially damages the facility, it gives Tehran both the political justification and the immediate motive to rebuild even deeper, faster, and under even tighter secrecy. A failed or incomplete conventional strike could inadvertently accelerate the very crisis it was meant to prevent. Furthermore, the United States does not have an endless supply of these assets. The B-2 fleet is incredibly small, consisting of just a couple dozen operational airframes. Every single GBU-57 mission requires these aircraft to fly an extraordinary 30-plus-hour logistics chain from Missouri, supported by a massive fleet of aerial tankers stretching across oceans. There is no second stealth platform waiting in reserve if this fleet faces maintenance exhaustion. This operational scarcity is exactly why some defense analysts believe Trump's public naming of Pickaxe Mountain wasn't an operational slip, but a deliberate psychological gambit. In geopolitics, signaling that you are willing to use a weapon can sometimes be more effective than actually dropping it. By making the threat public, Washington raises the stakes, hoping to force Iran back to the negotiating table without ever turning a key in a missile silo. As we watch this conflict develop over the coming weeks, we must maintain a strict level of skepticism regarding the raw numbers. Because International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors have never been granted physical access to Pickaxe Mountain, every metric we have, from the exact burial depths to the location of the uranium, is based entirely on satellite imagery interpretation. In classified military targeting, interpretation is still one step removed from confirmed fact. Whether this standoff ends in a high-risk layered strike, a sudden diplomatic breakthrough, or a long-term military checkmate will define the next phase of global security. To monitor this yourself, keep a close eye on open-source flight tracking data out of Whiteman Air Force Base for unusual tanker orbits, and watch for sudden equipment movements in Isfahan province. If you want to understand the deep engineering behind modern warfare, rather than just reading scary headlines, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and tell me in the comments below, do you think conventional weapons can truly crack Pickaxe Mountain?